as you might have seen in the newspapers last Friday, the manufacturers of hydrocortisone have been fined £260 million, luckily, and it's partly because of some of our work. So let me tell you a bit about it. Right, so hydrocortisone should be absolutely dirt cheap because it was identified a long, long time ago. And the World Health Organization have a list of essential medicines that any healthcare in the world should have available for its citizens to be adequate. And one of those, obviously, is hydrocortisone. And they say that, they must be available. It's a high priority drug, and hydrocortisone and fluorocortisone, you need to do your utmost to make it available in 5, 10, and 20 milligram tablets, okay? Essential medicines in any healthcare system. And I dug out some old BNFs, and as you can see here, hydrocortisone tablets, 10 milligrams, 70 pence for 30 tablets, okay? And for 20 milligrams, £1.07 for a month's supply of hydrocortisone made by the original manufacturers, Merck Sharp and Dohme. It was Merck who discovered it in 1949. Very cheap to make, okay? But 3 years later, remarkably, the same thing had been changed to non-proprietary. Okay, so no longer. So Merck basically pulled out of the UK, and another company took over, and they basically hiked the price on a monthly basis, going from 1 to 2 to 4 to 8. And so by 2010, the same drug was £48.80, and for 20 that's £51. Okay. In fact, intravenous hydrocortisone was cheaper, only £1 for an ampule. So it was a tablet issue, and it was the way that the UK markets having a marketing license is a problem. And it's an international problem, but it's a real problem in this country. Now, this didn't go unnoticed, okay? So this was in the Daily Mail, July 2010. And their title is, NHS doesn't care about cost of medicine, okay? And basically, the guy who did this said, I don't care. And of course, he went to the business school. And the business school have taught him that the way to make a profit is to reduce the supply and then increase the cost. So he did that. And he's quite proud of the fact that he's got a knighthood for being such a good businessman, okay? And on top of that, despite all that publication, he just pushed it up further. So it kept on going up. So he really didn't care, okay? 2014, we're now £51, okay? And the background, therefore, is that the marketing of it, Merck stopped making it. They gave the license to Orden Mackenzie. They got the license. Now, we don't know why no other company then competed, but they put the price up and up and up. And clearly they had a monopoly, and clearly the CMA have now got evidence that they bribed other companies to keep out of the market. Okay, so whenever somebody came along and said, oh, we can make some hydrocortisone, cheaper than them, they were bribed. We wrote this editorial in 2014, but we had a different tack, because the other thing that was coming along was Plenodrin, okay? Now, Plenodrin was slow-release hydrocortisone, and it was thought that maybe having a smooth curve, Plenodrin once daily, would be better than thrice daily hydrocortisone. But we wrote this paper comparing what we knew at the time, which was basically there's no evidence that hydrocortisone is good. And we said the old treatments are still the best. We're talking about prednisolone, okay? And we wrote a thing about prednisolone, and you know the story of how fortune. And the price kept on going up, okay? So now it's £64, okay, being £50. So despite all this bad publicity, these guys, notice non-proprietary. So what they've done is you take it, you make it non-generic, you debrand it as moving discovered, and then there's no regulation. So branded drugs are regulated, but non-branded drugs are not regulated. Okay, and this is where the number 260 million came along. So the Times then took it on in 2016 and talked about extortionate prices adding to the NHS drug bill. And the Telegraph, same thing, 12,000% now, 2016, but they don't care. They just kept on going. So a year later, 147. So despite all of that, they just kept on going. And it seems that nobody was interested. So then, I started getting a bit of jip from various people about whether prednisolone was safe, effective, dangerous, and there's no evidence. And we all agree there's no evidence. But why use the more expensive drug when we have a very, very cheap option in prednisolone, which is still only £1 for a month's supply? And it's basically the same molecule with a double bond in it. So we basically approached the NIHR and have got funding, and we spent a bit of money to basically get a license preparation of our own hydrocortisone. So in order to study it, we basically, you will know the studies that Mubin's doing now, is a blind randomized controlled trial of prednisolone 3 or 4 milligrams once daily, and then placebo against hydrocortisone 10.5.5 or 10.5.2.5. So of course we had to make tablets of all those strengths, and you need to get a license. So we did that. Now Genesis Pharma, I'll tell you a story about how we found them. So Genesis Pharma are in West London, in Kensington, and I was introduced to them by many people know Faye Probst, one of the consultants in A&E here. So she plays poker, and one of her poker partners was someone who worked for this company, and they were looking for a drug where they could make different strengths to just launch. And so I suggested to him, having had this introduction, because she knew what we were trying to do. And so they said, oh, we can do that. We can make all different strengths, and we'll help you apply for a license. And so they applied for a license for us to do the study. Okay, it was a study license, but they then applied for a marketing license also, just to make hydrocortisone in competition with those guys, Ord and McKenzie. So that was the first competition. Now they did it. I mean, anyone could have done it. And of course, at that price, you'd think that anyone would. But, and of course, they must have got phone calls and threats and things, but they just went ahead. So they launched 10 and 20, which is what was available for 147 at the time, at 20 and 40 pounds a month. Now, remember, it's only worth, well, I say worth, it originally cost, you know, about £1 or £2. So it still was a large profit for them, but they launched it on the 1st of November 2017. And down came the price. Slowly but surely, it kept falling, so that by a year ago, so this is just before lockdown, it went down to 84 and 147. So still, it's quite high. I'll just point out Plenodron, okay, which has put itself at £400 for a month's supply for 20 milligrams of hydrocortisone in a slow release tablet. And what I've discovered is if you write down 10 plus 5 plus 5, some pharmacies dispense this as the 5 milligram tablet, which is extremely expensive. So if you write 10 plus 5 plus 5, you mean 10 and then break it into 2 halves, which is cheaper. But because the original is quite expensive, they didn't see much of a markup. And so there are some people I've noticed who have 10, 5 and 5 as a single tablet. I said, why is a single tablet? It turned out to be Plenodron. But it started coming down. So now, although they were charging 147, the price that they were allowed to refund started falling. So it's here it is at £37 and £14. It's really coming down quite quickly. And this is the most recent incept that I've looked up, and you can see it's now £3.55, made by Genesis, the company that make it for our study. £3.55 for a month's supply, compared to these other guys who are still trying to sell it for 147. But of course, they won't get any marketing now because that's the drug tariff, the charge, the price the NHS will pay for the drug. And interestingly, other companies have joined in at random prices. So having kept out of the market for 16 years, suddenly they're all quite happy to compete. So clearly, this is the evidence that clearly there was some sort of bribe going on, because now they have no qualm about entering the market, and there's loads of them. Advance, Alliance, Almus, they've all joined, and some of them are down at the right price. So now competition is working, and bribery and corruption is no longer the case, but it thrives. So here is a graph of the price of 10 and 25 cortisone. This is where we start in the research, and down it comes. It's still a bit more, I mean, maybe it's about the right price given the inflation and things, but it's still a bit more expensive. So prednisolone is still really cheap. So it's still cheaper to use prednisolone, but not much. So basically now we need to know which one is better. So while we're doing this, there are a number of things that we found with pred, because it used to be costs that drove it. But in fact, patients who are on pred find it much more convenient because only once a day. And the other thing that's worth saying is that Plenodron did a very good study called the DREAM study, which you may have seen, which seemed to show that once daily Plenodron was better than hydrocortisone 3 times daily on a number of markers like HbA1c and lipids and things. and also on the immune system. But we've discussed that before, so I won't go into that in detail. But that makes people think that maybe you want a smooth curve. But prednisolone does exactly the same thing. But the problem is we've been giving too much. And I've done many other talks about the dose of prednisolone. It's about the cost, okay? So basically, the price of hydrocortisone was increased from one company over 10 years. And the problem we had is that no one tried to compete. And it's now at last coming down to £3.50. It's still a bit more than in France, but we're getting there. I've got this data from the NHS improvement as to the amount of money spent on hydrocortisone over the years. And it peaked in 2016 at 60 million. I mean, this is crazy amounts of money. And of course, the thought is that if we can introduce competition, and if you look at how we did it, we basically spent about 100K on getting the drug made for ourselves and then launching it. So one of the thoughts we've had is if we actually find any other drugs where this is happening, and can I tell you there are plenty, then we just need the NHS to spend about 100K and invest in making it in competition with the other companies rather than get the CMA to have a big fight about it. Now, of course, industry, they've got to be protected, and government is keen to protect industry, is what I'm discovering when I gave this talk. And they are protected by patents when they discover something new. But I think relaunching old drugs with no discovery and claiming they're doing something clever is very difficult to justify. And rather than try and find them, we should just prevent it by starting ourselves. And this is yesterday's news. Okay, this is a late breaking news I was telling you about. So the company Genesis have now launched 2.5, 5, and 15 of hydrocortisone on top. So now when you prescribe 10, 5, 5, this is very cheap. This is cheap, okay? This is not expensive hydrocortisone. You can give them single tablets of 10 and 5 and 2.5. So we have to break it in half, which is good. This is our company. I wish I own shares in it. Right? We're not the first people to discover this. So genetic market failures have been looked at in the US, and this is in the New England Journal have said the same thing, okay? And that is that if they can establish a non-profit manufacturer, that will keep the price down, and it's something that we need to think about in the UK. Now, it's still going on, so I can go through a large number of drugs where this happens. So here's the other one that I work with, T3. Many of you know I do a T3 withdrawal clinic, and 28 tablets used to cost £4.46 in 2007, okay? And it depends what strength, of course, but £4, okay? And now, ridiculous, okay? 161 and £245 for a month's supply of T3. So insane pricing that is obviously making people very unhappy. Anyway, there's my conclusion, which is old drugs have no development costs, and there's no excuse for this. And the mechanism really needs overhauling, is what I said. And my point really is that the CMA, the Monopolies Commission, really can't deal with this because by the time they sorted it out, look at those prices, right? The prices came down because we started that research, and the CMA now, after the event, finds the guys who did it in the first place. But it's too late.